Good day, fellow adventurer, and welcome. My name is CO Matt, and today I'll be covering the most voted for class for my 5th Pathfinder 2nd Edition class overview, the Bard. In Pathfinder 1st Edition, the Bard was the class that I wanted to like, but just couldn't bring myself to do so. The Bard was a jack of all trades, but certainly was also a master of none. 6th level spontaneous casting and a solid array of spells, some of which could be acquired earlier than others, such as heroism and overwhelming presence, certainly made it look appealing, and with a solid array of skills learned and proficiencies, the Bard seemed to not look like a slouch. Unfortunately, their unique mechanic, bardic performance, was what truly prevented them from shining. The major issue was that they were limited to rounds per day of performance, which had middling increases without feat support from lingering performance and extra performance. Additionally, until they hit 7th level, starting a bardic performance was a standard action. Usually, one had much better things to do on their turn. As such, it was incredibly cumbersome to play as a bard at low levels, since they required at least a couple of turns to get going. Though the bard had a few advantages over other classes, their overall kit seemed very lackluster. Their spells, outside of a few notable ones, such as the previously mentioned heroism and haste, were often dull and not very impactful. Lingering performance, often rated very highly since it saves the bard's precious performance rounds, made it such that the bard would lose every third standard action in order to inspire courage. Additionally, all of their other performances ranged in value from not very good and inspire competence and Dirge of Doom to hot garbage in basically every other performance they had below 10th level, since the bonuses provided by Inspire Courage were frankly too good to not be using in a combat scenario. The Pathfinder 2nd Edition Bard would need to overhaul how their performances work, in addition to keeping their spells unique enough to give the Bard a solid footing in an adventuring party of 4. Action economy would be key to see if the Bard could become the star of the show, or if they would be taking a backseat to the rest of the party. So what is a Bard, and how would one fit into a party of adventurers? Bards are masters of both performance and the occult, using magic to heighten their performances, or vice versa. Bards often act as the face of the party, using their naturally high charisma to work through encounters, hostile or otherwise. They are just as often scholars as they are performers, interested in deciphering the mysterious ways of the world. In combat, bards provide buffs and debuffs, using their performances to bolster the strength of their teammates and to hinder their enemies. It is very important for a bard to make their presence known, and as such, they will want the limelight more often than not. Bards, thanks to their array of skills, features, and natural inclinations, make for fantastic leaders as well. The Bard retains most of what it originally had in 1st edition, same hit points per level, armor proficiencies, and weapon proficiencies. They lose their good reflex save, but keep their good will save. At first glance, it can be seen that the Bard has an excellent feature that separates it from the other spellcasting classes: expert proficiency in perception. One of the most fantastic buffs that the Bard received is full 10th level casting. With a greater degree of spells to play with, the Bard is placed in an excellent position. In addition, they also receive a handful of skills to play with: 2 set skills in performance and occultism, and 4 more of their choosing. This puts them tied for 2nd alongside the ranger and only behind the rogue. Bards are still spontaneous spellcasters, and their spell attack roll modifier and spell DC are based off their charisma modifier, which also happens to be their key ability score. The bard can fulfill a variety of roles based on how they are built, but all bards are made for fantastic buffers and faces. Thanks to their naturally high charisma, they can weave in and out of a conversation as fluidly as they would a battle. With how well their spells lend to being selfless, the bard makes for a solid support character as well, able to do small amounts of healing alongside their other spells. In addition, thanks to the number of skills they have trained at 1st level, the bard can also make for a solid librarian. That being said, keep in mind that their intelligence and wisdom scores are most likely not the greatest. Thanks to the new, and in my opinion, improved Inspire Courage, the bard retains their ability to act as a source of inspiration, increasing the potency of everyone's attacks. Speaking of which, Inspire Courage is now a composition spell, exactly the same as other classes' focus spells. More specifically, Inspire Courage is a composition cantrip. This does not require a focus point to use, and as such, can be used as many times as the bard wants to throughout a day. What is a composition spell that does require a point to use is Counter Performance, a reaction spell that the bard can use to attempt to counteract a visual or auditory-based effect. Do be aware that the bard may only have one performance up at a time, and using another one will end the previous one's effects. What always bothered me about Pathfinder 1st Edition's bards is that there was never anything that stated how a bard received their powers. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it is a lot more clear, and the bard may currently select from one of 3 muses: their source of inspiration, and also their abilities. I'll go into more detail on these muses at a later point in time in the video. At later levels, the bard doesn't receive much in the way of class features. Akin to the wizard, most of their features will be their increased level of spell casting. Because the bard is a spontaneous caster, they cannot freely heighten their spells, unless it is a signature spell. At 3rd level, the bard can choose one spell of each level of casting they have access to designate as a signature spell. With this, they can freely heighten that spell to whatever level they want to, provided they are capable of casting that level of spells. At 19th level, the bard completes their magnum opus and unlocks the ability to cast a 10th level spell, in addition to adding 2 10th level spells to their repertoire. Unlike the other caster classes, the bard's proficiency increases aren't lacking. In fact, they're almost as phenomenal as most martial classes. Bards gain master proficiency in perception at 11th level, something no other caster can boast. They also gain expert proficiency in fortitude saves at 9th level, and reflex at 3rd. This is about the same progression as the other caster classes, but the bard gains master proficiency in will saves at 9th level, tied with the cleric and quicker than the other casters, and legendary proficiency in will saves at 17th level, something only the monk can also boast. Weapon proficiencies increasing at 11th level is nice, but a bard will more than likely be sticking with spells at this point. Additionally, their armor increases to expert at 13th level, which is standard fare for casters, which can also be said about their spellcasting proficiencies. At 1st level, the bard's choice of muse will impact what ability they will gain, in addition to what feats they will qualify for down the line. Enigma is the first on the list, and their muse is a mystery. Enigma bards are obsessed with uncovering the mysteries of the universe, and as a result, they gain the Bardic Lore feat and also add the True Strike spell to their repertoire. The Bardic Lore feat gives them Bardic Lore, a unique skill that can be used to recall knowledge on any topic. This increases to expert proficiency when you become legendary in occultism, but can never increase through any other means and cannot ever grow higher than expert. The Maestro Muse is my personal favorite, and they are dedicated performers. They gain the Lingering Composition feat, and also add the Soothe spell to their repertoire. Lingering Composition gives the Maestro an additional focus point, and also gives them the Lingering Composition focus spell, which, as a free action, can increase the duration of a composition cantrip of 1 round to either 3 or 4 on a successful or critically successful performance check. Finally, we have the Polymath, the Jack of all trades. These bards cannot be tied down to just one focus and will do their best to learn and do as much as they can within their lifetimes. They gain the Versatile Performance feat and also learn the Unseen Servant spell. Versatile Performance is quite nice to have, as it allows the bard to use performance instead of diplomacy when making an impression, and instead of intimidate to demoralize. Additionally, an acting performance can also be used instead of deception to impersonate. In terms of skills, the bard will want to allocate most of their training to their face skills: diplomacy, deception, intimidate, and of course, performance. The ones they prioritize will certainly be dependent on the build, but having at least 2 of the first 3 will be important for general scenarios. The bard, with their extra skill ranks, might also want to invest in crafting, so they can eventually be able to create items for the party if given downtime should they choose not to earn income through their performance skill. To nobody's surprise, medicine works its way back into my guide since it's the best skill in the game. A more scholarly bard will certainly want to be trained in arcana, nature, religion, and most bards will end up taking proficiency in society. Lore skills can especially be important, and the Enigma bard gets a special reference due to their bardic lore ability, which allows them to recall knowledge on any subject. Their increases, however, will vary depending on which muse they select. An Enigma bard will more than likely wish to improve their occultism skill, since when they arrive at legendary, their bardic lore skill also increases. However, a polymath bard will certainly want to increase their performance skill, as they can use it to qualify for feats based off of the other 3 face skills. Finally, the Maestro will also want to increase their performance skill, as they will be using it during encounters in order to use their composition spells, though so will the others. As I had previously mentioned in the wizard video, bards do not get to choose a first level class feat through normal means. However, their selection of muse allows them to gain one depending on the selection. I already went over the 3 muse feats, so I won't be going over those again. Unfortunately for the bards, the metamagic feat that they receive is Reach Spell, not Widen Spell. If they had received the latter, they would have been able to increase the range of their composition spells. Alas, they do not, and though Reach Spell might have a couple of uses, they will be hard-pressed in finding good spells to consistently use it for. The Bard's selection of later class feats are quite eclectic, and I am a fan of quite a few of these. I'm going to start with the ones restricted to the Maestro, since they are my favorite and, in my opinion, the most powerful. Inspire Competence is nice when paired with Lingering Composition in order to be able to use a reaction multiple times throughout an encounter or during exploration, but it isn't too exciting. What is, however, is Inspired Defense. Adding a status bonus to armor class of all teammates and yourself is already hard to come by, but giving out resistances as well is just flat out amazing. If you select the Maestro Muse, this is your 4th level feat. Seriously, it's that good. Inspire Heroics pairs nicely with this feat as well, increasing the armor class boost at the cost of a focus point. Additionally, it also increases the strength of Inspire Courage, meaning your teammates will hit and crit much more often. Non-Muse feats worth your while include the other composition cantrips. Triple Time is quite nice as a status boost to speed is always useful. Dirge of Doom no longer sucks and will always cause enemies within 30 feet of you to be frightened 1, no saving throw required. The Bard, without feat support, cannot learn their entire spell list. Instead, they will need to carefully select which spells to add into their repertoire, and useful spells will always be at a premium. Without feat support, the Bard will only have 5 cantrips, and will have to pick the best ones in order to get use out of them. Detect Magic and Read Aura are, of course, the best to select, but that leaves the Bard with only 3 cantrips to choose from, and every other caster also has access to those 2 spells. For those without Dark Vision and Low Light Vision, either Dancing Lights or Light will help. Guidance can be nice, as it only costs 1 action, has a range of 30 feet, and can give the recipient a +1 status bonus to effectively any d20 roll they choose. However, do be aware that the bonus provided from Inspire Courage is also a status bonus, and the 2 bonuses will not stack. Message has its uses, and so does Prestidigitation, and Telekinetic Projectile is the Bard's best option for a damaging cantrip. Daze also exists, but does significantly less damage and scales worse. A melee Bard could make use out of Shield and as a 1st level spell, Magic Weapon, or True Strike, or both. Mage Armor is a complete waste of a spell slot since you already gain access to light armor, and one should be focusing on team-based buffs instead. Usually, I would recommend Bless, but once again, status bonuses don't stack. Spirit Link could be a fine addition in case your frontliners are prone to taking a lot of damage, but to be completely honest, I prefer debuffs for the Bard in these spell slots. Color Spray is a returning favorite, as it provides a lot of crowd control for very little. Fear is also great, and has a solid heightened effect as well. Soothe is nice for healing, but one should leave the healing to the healers. Magic Missile is effective damage, and as no enemy resists force and very few will cast shield, but one should leave the blasting to the blasters. Protection is a great buff, but only applies versus a specific alignment. Generally speaking, however, one will be aware of what types of enemies they will face in a given campaign. I might be saving the best for last here, but Summon Fae has many uses that can help out a team. Even though it requires a sustain action, the Fae can be used to provide flanking bonuses as well as other nasty effects. In terms of a party face, in my opinion, no one does it better than the Bard. They are one of 3 classes that has Charisma as a key ability score, and they have different benefits that separate themselves from the others. The main competition that the Bard will face in this regard are from the Sorcerer and the Rogue. The former can have access to the same list of spells that the Bard can, and will also have an extra spell per level per day, in addition to knowing 1 additional spell per level. However, the Bard has 2 more skills to play with than the Sorcerer will, given the same amount of intelligence, and the Sorcerer most likely will be forced to choose between missing out on one of Diplomacy, Deception, and Intimidate, unless they burn additional resources to getting all 3 from feats or other abilities. The Bard is also unmatched in their other primary role, buffing and debuffing. Inspire Courage, Inspire Defense, Inspire Heroics, and even Triple Time and Dirge of Doom can all be fantastic ways to ensure that your teammates are operating above their limits and that your opponents are operating below theirs. No other class has access to this array of abilities, and as such, it would be foolish to even consider comparing them. All of these things I had previously mentioned, except for Inspire Heroics, are all cantrips as well, and as such, can be used throughout an adventuring day at 0 cost to the user, minus the action spent to use it. That being said, most of the Bard's actions will not take up all 3 actions, except Summon Fae, and the Bard will more than likely have that last action available to use a composition spell. Finally, lingering composition can also be used in the case that action economy is tight. Other classes wish they had access to these types of buffs. The Enigma Bard can serve as a librarian in case there are no intelligence-based classes present in the party, or if the rogue decides to not invest in any of the 6 knowledge skills, being Arcana, Lore, Nature, Occultism, Religion, and Society. Bardic Lore is a fantastic catch-all that allows the bard to recall knowledge on any subject, and this can be a very good way to unravel the mysteries of the world around you. An incredibly fun but risky combination is to pair this with the skill feat Dubious Knowledge, which gives them correct and incorrect information on a failure. Since Bardic Knowledge can only improve to Expert with legendary proficiency in Occultism, odds are the bard will be failing quite often. To compare the bard with the other librarian in the game, the wizard, I have to say that the bard will fall a bit flat, because of their tendencies to improve performance over their other skills, and no natural inclination to improve intelligence or wisdom. As such, the wizard will have a much higher chance of succeeding on these checks, and the two will have about the same amount of skills trained at first level. However, the bard is going to want charisma-based skills, while the wizard will not. As such, the wizard will have much higher bonuses than the bard will at every level. Finally, the wizard will only need to be trained in Arcana instead of the other 3 skills revolving around spellcasting traditions, thanks to the general feat Unified Theory. This allows them to substitute an Arcana check for Nature, Occultism, and Religion, and as such, will have a much easier time acting as a librarian than the bard will. I should note at this time that the bard does have feat support for this, while the wizard does not. Know-it-all and true hypercognition are fantastic ways at getting more knowledge quickly, but the former requires GM discretion, and the latter is competing with Allegro for a feat slot. When it comes to supporting the team with curatives and healing, the cleric immediately comes to mind, and for good reason. Divine Font gives them additional heal spells equivalent to their charisma modifier, and these spells will automatically be heightened to their highest level of casting. This is absolutely insane, and being able to use a 3-action heal to restore hit points in an area of effect can save precious daily resources when topping off other teammates. Outside of Soothe, the bard lacks healing capabilities, and let's be honest here, you're not going to blow all of your spell slots just to heal. Additionally, being a prepared caster as well as having access to their entire tradition allows the cleric to prepare spells such as Restoration when they think it will be necessary, instead of spending an entire spell known in order to do so. As such, the versatility of being able to choose the spells you want to use in a given day certainly gives the edge to the cleric. The first build on display here attempts to utilize the bard's well-rounded abilities in order to act as a fantastic face, while still contributing to other facets of an adventuring party. The Polymath Muse allows Savannah to focus on increasing her performance skill as she increases in level, and Elven Lore gives her an additional number of skills trained. Her spells known complement her versatility, giving her a good amount of both offensive and defensive options. Her overall playstyle is to contribute to the party in whatever way she can. In combat, she will focus on using Inspire Courage and Telekinetic Projectile to assist the team and deal damage, and also use her stronger spells in the case of a threatening adversary. This gnome is all about being the star of the show, and they are fantastic at doing so. Their first level Ancestry feat gives them a free performance feat, and in this case, Virtuosic Performer gives them a bonus to performance checks. This is helpful since Lingering Composition will require a performance check to determine success, and every bonus is important. Their main playstyle during encounters is to use Inspire Courage early and often, and have it linger as they use their other spells. In the case that they find themselves in melee combat, they will often take the Feint action to catch their opponents flat-footed. Finally, this last build here is something I've actually wanted to try to see if it's any good. With a scholarly background, Conroy seeks to discover every mystery there may be. Sadly, his memory isn't so great, so he has a hard time telling fact from fiction. He is quite a bookworm with training in all relevant magical traditions as well as society. His Ancestry feat gives him access to Dubious Knowledge. Alongside Bardic Lore, this can make for a very interesting combination. Most encounters will begin with him recalling knowledge on his enemies to discern their strengths and weaknesses. If I had to pick one class as the most improved going through editions, it would have to be the Bard. They received full casting and a fantastic list of spells to accompany them. Thanks to the various skill feats and class features, the Bard's signature skills in Performance and Occultism can both have a wide variety of uses, despite seemingly limited at first glance. And despite being a full caster, the Bard's class feats are strong and versatile, allowing them to keep their class features outside of spellcasting relevant throughout their adventuring career. Their proficiency progression is also amazing, as they are the only casting class that gains master proficiency in perception and legendary proficiency in will saves. Their weapons and armor proficiencies are not bad either, and they are tied for most HP gained per level in terms of casters. The bards are the best buffing class in the game, hands down. Bardic performances are incredibly powerful in this edition, and thanks to how the new action economy works, they usually aren't forced to choose between using a composition spell or an actual spell in a given round of combat. New feats such as Inspire Heroics allow the bard to augment their cantrips, while changes to old ones like Lingering Performance, Dirge of Doom, and Bardic Lore allow the bard to truly shine in their given role. Thanks to the new proficiency system, key ability score, and their solid amount of skill training, bards also make for the best face in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Thanks to the additional mileage they can get out of the performance skill, they can accomplish more than most other classes due to the polymath's versatile performance, or even just by taking the impressive performance feat. In addition, spell support and charm and fear give them additional utility in this regard. The bard's case for being the party librarian is an interesting one. Thanks to the Enigma Muse and with feat support, they can make good use out of the Recall Knowledge action. However, the downside here is that they cannot ever improve upon Bardic Lore until 15th level, and will need to train Occultism to legendary proficiency to do so. Finally, those looking to use the Bard as a support class may have come to the wrong place. Though they do get a lot of support-oriented spells like the Divine Spellcasting tradition does, they simply cannot afford to blow all of their spells known on these. If they were prepared spellcasters, they might be able to, but in this case, the Cleric simply does this job much better. All things considered, the Bard is a fantastic class in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and is one of my personal favorites. No longer the best 5th party member, the Bard is a well-rounded class that can fill particular niches in a 4-player party, thanks to all of the benefits they've gained between editions. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for additional content. I plan on releasing one video of this type every week until I have covered every class, so do stay tuned. I currently do not have plans on doing these videos in any sort of order, but I will be posting the next class poll on my Discord channel and on Twitter, which can both be found in the description. And of course, have a great day.